Aegis Reclaimer, the often forgotten industrial behemoth of Star Citizen, sits at the fringes of space as we know it, often left behind by the very company who conceived of it, like an orphaned puppy just waiting its turn, patiently waiting when all of its siblings have gotten their upgrades and their working components, patiently waiting to be remembered. Every time that Star Citizen rolls out a new feature, things such as physicalized cargo, PDCs, quality of life upgrades, certain ships really get the spotlight. And then there's the Aegis Reclaimer. Why does one of the biggest ships in the game keep getting left behind? For those who don't know, the Reclaimer is Star Citizen's massive salvage capital ship, a hulking industrial beast built to strip ships down to their bones. It's one of the most impressive interiors of the game, but it's also one of the most underutilized. When physicalized cargo dropped, plenty of ships got reworks. The Reclaimer, still clunky and hardly usable. When PDCs rolled out, other capitals got the attention, but the salvage titan stayed on the bench until just recently in the latest release when it finally got them. And this isn't the first time it's happened. We're talking about a ship that cost players serious credits, both in-game and in real life. Yet it delivers fewer practical upgrades than ships half of its size. That's a problem for both org leaders and solo capital pilots. They could have modular cargo systems, automated salvage drones, even a working docking collar. And really, it should be the central point of the soon-to-be previewed crafting gameplay. But instead, it's sitting in the hangar, waiting for tech that seems to always go somewhere else first. Why is it the only capitalized ship without medical facilities? Despite the fact that logically an industrial ship of this size is very likely to result in injuries of workers. For the very nature of the ship, it really deserves to have some type of medical facilities. But yet, it has none. Let's take a look and see exactly how we've gotten to where we're at today. Right from the beginning, the Reclaimer had a bit of a rocky start. It actually began as the concept art for what we now know as the Carrack. Now, originally, it was a $32 million stretch goal in the original crowdfunding game, and it actually had a completely different name. It was named the Surveyor. As time moved on, in September 2014, the Reclaimer was actually offered on a limited concept sale. They offered limited versions of the hull. It was very similar to the Idris today. Now, on April 1st, 2018, the ship was actually released into the game. With its release, it had very, very limited gameplay. For instance, the only thing you could really do in the salvage realm was strip hulls. Now, as we know it today, you can actually strip hulls, but you can also actually destroy the ship for construction material. I have a feeling that with the introduction of crafting, we're going to see the idea of salvaging ships take a whole new light. The Reclaimer has always had quite a fan base to come along with it. In fact, in 2019, the Reclaimer actually won the Best in Show in the Ship Showdown. That's impressive. This was one of the first ship showdowns, and it beat out all of the other ships, despite the fact that it had actually launched more than a year prior. Now, it wasn't until roughly 5 years after the Reclaimer was introduced, in 2023, that we really actually got salvage gameplay as we know it today. And it really wasn't until about 8 months ago that we actually even got a cargo elevator that sort of works, even if it is highly flawed and deeply problematic most days. Now let's roll the clock back to the time that it was originally concepted. The Reclaimer was supposed to have a massive salvage arm with multiple lasers capable of cutting up and transporting chunks of salvage on board into the ship, which would later be ground up, processed, packaged, and ultimately put into the salvage hold. The Reclaimer was even supposed to have drones. They were supposed to be capable of being deployed to EVA for recovery operations and to help with the salvage operations. It was also supposed to include 2 salvage turrets that were used to reclaim the RMC. Just imagine this massive group of 7 or 8 people, each of them doing their own roles. Or you've got engineers, and you've got drone pilots, and you've got RMC extraction experts and pilots actually moving the reclaimer around. Everyone would fill their own individual role and serve their purpose in actually recovering every last little bit out of the ship. But that's not really what we ended up getting. I mean, it does have 2 salvage heads that extends, but most of the gameplay still doesn't exist. The drones are non-existent in the game. Pretty sure that when they do exist in the game, the Reclaimer's probably going to be one of the last to get them, if it ever does. Salvage arm really just uses magic vibrations to destroy a ship into smaller pieces, instead of having lasers actually cutting it up and the gripper grabbing it and sucking it into the ship. The salvage processing is really just another HUD with graphics to show things being ground without any real reason or logic as to why. The ship feels like a large 1 to 2 person ship, not a multiple crew member ship with 10 plus stations for players to play a vital role in the operations of it. Even the salvage elevator doesn't go all the way down to the ground, and it's confusing the purpose of if it's an elevator versus a cargo lift, and what the difference between the cargo lift and the salvage elevator really are supposed to be. Now, to this day, you can still process boxes that are larger than you can even get out of the ship. It's not really fully compatible with the physical cargo that was introduced a year ago. The salvage missions themselves are overbalanced. And I mean, in my testing, I got charged about $50,000 for a mission that really only yielded about 50% profit. And that's before I subtracted my costs like fuel. And it's a multi-member ship. I mean, it's supposed to have that profit split in multiple ways. So for instance, doing 2 $50,000 contracts really nets me about $100,000 by the time you're all said and done. The moral of the story really is that the Reclaimer is really not in that great of a state today. The Reclaimer to me is really kind of like Pluto. It falls in this really strange spot. Although technically it's supposed to be a capital-sized ship, even CIG forgot to list it as a capital ship on their website. Now let's take, for instance, the medical bay. Every other capital ship in the game has a medical bay. Every other announced capital ship in the game will have a medical bay. That covers off every single one of them that's been announced in game so far. We actually have enough details to say whether or not they would. Now let's look at a hangar. Both of the capital ships in game, the Aegis and the Polaris, both have sizable hangars. Why doesn't the Reclaimer have a hangar that you could at least land drones in today? No. Their capital ships are really built with large numbers of crews in mind. They have wider hallways, large crew quarters. The Reclaimer itself feels cramped, despite the fact that they actually have 10 workstations built into the ship as it is today. And even the website is out of date for the Reclaimer, as it lists it as being a 4 to 5 crew ship. Again, despite the fact that there's 10 or 11 seats, plus whatever is there for gameplay we don't have today, like processing the salvage. You want to talk about components? I mean, to this day, it still doesn't have capital-sized components in it. And a capital ship doesn't have capital-sized components in it. Now, the Reclaimer is actually the second largest ship in game today. It actually beats out the Polaris. Now, despite this, you still don't have the ability to even dock it at a station. In fact, the only place that you can even land a Reclaimer is planetside. I thought the intention was supposed to be the larger ships were meant to stay in space and not have to go planetside all the time. But I mean, in all fairness, at least you can actually fly it to planetside, unlike about a year ago, where the thing would just fall out of the air. It's almost like they launched the Reclaimer, and then when they launched the Polaris, they just kind of forgot Reclaimer was supposed to be capital size. That's really the only explanation that I can think of that actually makes sense. Now, the real question to me is why? I mean, the Reclaimer is by far my favorite ship in the game. The level of detail on this ship really shows that whoever created it, whoever designed it, whoever made it really cared about the ship itself. From the blood or rust stains on the wall, I still can't tell which, down to the intricate details of the wiring that you find connecting all the parts on the outside. It really shows that somebody cared about this ship. Which adds to the question of why? Why is the ship so neglected? Now, recently John Crew has come out and said that unfortunately the Reclaimer is built using models and technology that isn't current in the game today. And basically to do any major changes on it is a significant amount of work. When you combine that with the fact that it's a ship that's regularly available on the pledge store for purchase, and quite honestly, I have to think that most people who are going to buy this ship already own it, and if they don't, they're probably going to buy it in game. That means that any significant improvements to the Reclaimer are not going to result in any significant funds coming in to pay for improvements. What that really means is that it makes a lot more sense to spend their time and effort on the next pretty thing that they can sell. It's the sad reality, but it is what it is. But with all that said, what is the future of the Reclaimer? I mean, to me, the future is actually very uncertain. For instance, what role is it really going to play when it comes to crafting? Now, we know that crafting is going to require materials, and logically it would make sense for the Reclaimer to be able to extract those different materials, perhaps in a different way, or refine things at a higher quality than something like the Vulture. But if it's that difficult to upgrade the Reclaimer, is it even going to be part of the crafting loop? Now, as we move into base building, I mean, you're going to build bases and you're going to want to get rid of them. Is the Reclaimer going to be upgraded in some way to allow it to fly in atmosphere, allowing it to destroy the things that we actually create and we no longer want? And really, on that note, what are the plans for in-atmosphere salvage anyways? Or is this something where we're going to need vultures to go and do the work on the ground? Or are they going to introduce another salvage ship to compete with it? Now, it's really meant to clean up ships, but really doesn't work well today anyways, because the outposts are all in armistice zones. So are they going to change the way the armistice zones work and maybe allow a Reclaimer to actually go into a mining outpost and clean up all of the abandoned ships? And quite honestly, if it's so much work and so difficult to make things like a docking collar work, what hope or chance do we ever have of making the claw have lasers that can destroy and chunk up a ship and then grab it and pull it in for processing? That really exciting level of gameplay that originally we were all promised and sold. So even if the Reclaimer will live on as the often forgotten and neglected capital ship that was launched well before its time, it'll live on with me as one of my favorite ships in the game, and all I can really say is that I'm sorry to the original designers and artists who worked on it, because I just don't feel that the game has given this magnificent beast justice in its current state today. How do you feel? Do you feel that Star Citizen has given the Reclaimer justice in its current state? Or do you think that it's been that forgotten capital ship that's been kind of put on the shelf and left in the hangar? Let me know in the comments below. This has been another video by Citizen Chaos, and I'll see you in the verse.